Mridanga? Do either of you know how to play Mridanga yet? You do? Good or no? Yes? You want to play? You want me to play? You play. All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. No, I think I better play Mridanga. Let me play Mridanga. You're pretty intense. Sorry about that. She can play cartels. Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavadinda Ki Gaur Pimanandi. The plan is today we're going to Dwaraka. Would you like to go to Dwaraka? That was enthusiastic, boy, yeah. Well, there's different methods of trying to get to Dwaraka. And during this COVID-19, you're not likely to get there. But even if you were to be able to get there, according to what our acharyas teach us about the Holy Dham, you can't buy a ticket to get there. What that means is, you may buy a ticket to get to the, where your GPS tells you you're at Dwaraka, but Dwaraka is a transcendental place. You can't get there by GPS or tickets. You have to get there by consciousness. And how that Krishna consciousness, or how consciousness of the Supreme Personality Godhead in His Holy Dham is made possible, consciousness-wise, is through sound. So the best way to get to Dwaraka or Vrindavan or any transcendental place is through sound, because the sound and the place are non-different. The sound and the person are non-different. The form of the personality of Godhead resides in that place, and the sound describing Him is non-different. We spent some time this morning discussing this. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the form of Krishna. Not only represents or tells us something about its information, it's not that kind of sound vibration. It's a transcendental sound vibration that's the same qualitatively as the form of the personality of Godhead. So the best way to get there is stay in Naperville and hear, or go wherever you go and hear. If you want to enter to Dwaraka, hear. And by being there and hearing about Dwaraka, or being here and hearing about Dwaraka, then that transports you to Dwaraka. So that's the method that was used in the case of Gopal Kumar. What does Kumar mean? You two children here. What is the meaning of Kumar? Kumar. Kumar. You've heard of the 4 Kumaras, right? So Kumar means, in everyday language, means a kid. A small boy. It's a certain age, a Kumara age. Kumara. It's an age, young, very young. It's when school begins. You know about school beginning. So you begin school when you turn 5, right? So that's when Kumara age begins. It's a Sanskrit term. It's like when you start going to school. It's young, very young age. So the main personality here is he was born in Vrindavan, and he had the occupation of many people in Vrindavan. He took care of cows. So he was a Gopa. His name was Gopal Kumar. Good name for a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, Gopal Kumar. And he, in the course of herding the cows, he saw in a distance, along with the other boys, a very amazing personality, a Brahmin, that attracted all of them. And Gopal Kumar came, and after taking care of the cows, he went and spent time with this Brahmin. He became very attached to him, and eventually, as a little boy, he asked him for a mantra. Mantra diksha, initiation into chanting of mantra. So the Brahmin agreed, told him to take his bath in the river Jumuna, come back, and at an auspicious time you'd give him mantra. He gave him mantra. And that's where his adventure begins. From chanting of his mantra, his consciousness started by sound. His consciousness started to progress further and further and further, and his guru had told him this mantra will allow you to achieve all desirable things. But his desire initially was, like most of the rest of us, kind of on the material side, but mixed, material, spiritual. He was a mixed devotee. And gradually, through experience, he experienced all kinds of situations within this universe, and then even beyond the universe. He was in Vrindavan, and he was seeing Krishna. But when he would run to be with Krishna, Krishna would disappear, and he was feeling very sad. So, because the Lord of the spiritual world knew his feelings, he sent 2 messengers from Vaikuntha to come and take him to Vaikuntha. So in his Gopal Kumar body, off he went to Vaikuntha. We heard the description of Vaikuntha. They brought him inside the 7 gates. They brought him before the Lord of Vaikuntha, Narayana, and he went mad. Gopal! Gopal! Because that's who he saw. And so forth. And then so from there he went from Vaikuntha to Ayodhya. And there he's having this discussion. Before going to Ayodhya, he had discussion with Narada, who gave him lots of amazing teachings to prepare him to make his way to Dwaraka. So he went to Ayodhya, experienced that place. We heard about Ayodhya. At least Gopal Kumar's experience of it. But he had this intense longing not only to see Lord Gopal, who is the Lord of his mantra, but to take part in his pastimes. So Ramchandra, being omniscient and benevolent, knowing the heart of Gopal Kumar, he told him, it's okay. Go to Dwaraka. And there you see the Lord of your life. So that's where we're beginning. This is Brihat Bhagavatamrita, chapter 4. No, chapter 3. And we'll just read a number of texts, starting with the first text of the chapter. Sri Gopal Kumar said, I then went to Dwaraka. There, I saw various groups of Yadavas along with their children. They were accompanied by some Brahmanas of Mathura, and they were enjoying themselves. I had wandered everywhere, but I had never before seen such a perfection of charm as that which shone in them. Seeing them gave me such delight that I forgot everything I had in mind. And those Yadavas, the best of all knowing sages, drew me into their company and embraced me. when they recognized me as the son of a cowherd from Govardhan Hill, their hearts melted in a flood of affection. And they took me by the hand and brought me into the inner precincts of the city. From a distance, I saw the personality of Godhead brilliantly manifest at leisure in a vast assembly hall. He sat on the excellent cushion of an excellent throne made of gold and jewels. That's the Sudharma assembly hall. He was served by many quintessential charms, like superlative charms, of the Lord of Vaikuntha, and by many different splendors, greater and greater than even that Lord does not possess, revealing his two beautiful arms for his devotees. So it's a two-armed form. Lord of Vaikuntha has four. Lord Krishna, the ocean of supremely wonderful pastimes, was worshipped by youthful maturity, softened by a touch of adolescent grace. What a nice description. His sublime gestures stole the hearts of his servants. Above him shone a broad white umbrella. At his two sides waved a pair of excellent yak-tail fans, and in front of him, upon a golden footstool, sat his divine slippers. All around him were various symbols of royalty befitting the ruler of kings among kings, and there were servants qualified to attend him, and transcendental opulences standing in rows before him. Picture it. Opulences standing in rows before him. This is Dwaraka, place of opulence. Shri Vasudeva, Balaram, Akrura, and others sat to his right, each on his own seat, Gada and Satyaki on his left, and just before him, King Ugrasena. Because Ugrasena was the king, Krishna wasn't the king. And nearby was the Lord's minister, Vikhadru, with Kritavarma and several other Vrishnis. Vrishnis are, that's in the line, the Yadus and the Vrishnis they come from the same ancestry. That's just describing one of the predecessor in that line and the other predecessor, but they're all from the same line. Just branches of the same line. Sri Narada was entertaining the Lord. He just saw him in Vaikuntha, and now here he is in Dwaraka again. We're going to hear about that. Making him smile with clever words, fine singing, and the music of his veena. Sri Garuda stood before the Lord, glorifying him with prayers, and Uddhava massaged the Lord's lotus feet and pleased him with affectionate, intimate remarks. Everyone has their service, and that's Uddhava's. Seeing from a distance the goal I had desired to see, I fell unconscious, overburdened by love. Then the Lord, brimming with exalted rasa of affection, told Uddhava to bring me close. Uddhava quickly came forward, delighted to see me in the dress of a cowherd boy. He carefully lifted me from the ground, brought me back to full awareness, and led me to the Lord's side with both hands. Then the Lord, wanting to lift me up and draw me to his side, placed his 2 feet close to me, and Uddhava, with his own hand, firmly touched my head to those lotus feet. He'd never experienced anything like that before. The Lord of my life then stroked me with his lotus hand as if to cleanse each of my limbs. And who is by his side in Dwaraka? In Puri. Who is by his side? There's 3 on the same altar. Right. And who are they in Dwaraka? Jagannath, or Krishna, Subhadra, and Balaram. You're in Dwaraka, right? So there's Krishna, Subhadra, and Balaram in Dwaraka. And then Jagannath, it's Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram. So what's the difference? Is there a difference? They're the same, but is there also a difference? You're not sure. Why is Jagannath having his arms stretched out like this? Do you know why?
He was so happy that his hands.
Yeah. And the happiness, there's a nice story. The residents of Dwaraka knew that Krishna had a deep, profound love for the residents of Vrindavan. They knew it. It was known by everybody. So they wanted to know, what is it about the residents of Vrindavan that inspires Krishna's love so much? And they were talking amongst themselves, and they concluded, you know who will know the answer? Who was Balaram's mother? Starts with an R. Rohini, right? Rohini. So another name for Balaram is Rohini Nandana. Rohini Nandana, the son of Rohini. So Rohini, because she was Balaram's mother, she was living in Vrindavan. She experienced the whole of Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes until Krishna and Balaram left and went to Mathura, and now they're in Dwaraka. So she's now in Dwaraka, and they all turn to Rohini. And Rohini starts describing the resident of Vrindavan and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And you know what happened. Krishna, omniscient Krishna, knew what was happening, so he immediately came rushing. He's on one side of Subhadra, Balaram's on the other side of Subhadra, looking over, wanting to hear more of Rohini's topics of the Brijvasis. And while he was standing there, his body transformed into what we see as the Jagannath deity. Narada was in that assembly. Narada saw and said, I see, you should assume a deity form like that. Then the statement of Narada had to become true. So we assumed the deity form like that. That's your t-shirt. That's Krishna in Dwaraka feeling intense love, ecstatic love for the Brijvasis, the residents of Vrindavan. So that's what's happening here. He's looking at Kumar's flute, and he's feeling ecstasy of separation from the residents of Vrindavan and his pastimes in Vrindavan, because that's his favorite object, is a flute. This one isn't his flute, it's Kumar's flute, but apparently in great distress, he silently shed tears. The next moment he asked, is all well with you? Is your health good? I hope the place you came from is free from any misfortune. While speaking this way, he again began to feel disturbed. and Uddhava had to calm him. With a gesture, Uddhava indicated to the Lord those present before them in the assembly, Vasudeva and other Yadavas, and many kings and demigods and sages. The Lord opened his lotus eyes and glanced at the people in front of him. With difficulty, he somewhat calmed himself. Uddhava is letting him know, we're in front of, you're not in private, you're in a public forum here with all these dignitaries, and compose yourself. He somewhat calmed himself and then got up to enter his inner quarters. Because I had now attained the Lord of my life, for whom I had yearned for so long, I was immersed in an ocean of joy. I had no idea what to say or what to do. As the chiefs of the Yadus began leaving, the Lord honored them with items such as pan and sandalwood paste. Holding my joined palms in his right hand, he took me with him as he entered the inner palace with Balaram and Uddhava. The Lord's 16,108 queens happily followed their husband, along with their maidservants, and in front of the queens placed their mothers-in-law, Sri Devaki and Rohini. Among the queens were the goddesses Rukmini, Satyabhama, and Jambavati, and Kalindi, and Mitravinda, and Satya, Bhadra, and Lakshmana. These are the principal 8. The Lord's other queens followed, headed by Rohini, all of them fit in every way to be his consorts, and all honored by groups of suitably qualified maidservants. His 2 mothers and all these queens surrounding him shyly, the Lord entered his palace, followed also, because he was in the assembly hall, Sudharma assembly hall. The Lord entered his palace, followed also by several groups of young sons, who added to the splendor of that procession. Within his palace, he concealed the emotions he was feeling, and with apparent pleasure, he sat down on the best of thrones. Can you think of names of some of his prominent sons? Pradyumna? Aniruddha? Good. Samba? Grandson. But I saw the Lord appearing before me as if adorned by the company of Sri Yashoda and all the beautiful young gopis and many young cowherd boys. Seeing the object of my meditation holding my flute in his hand, I again fainted, overwhelmed by delight. Mentioned, the only feature of Krishna's that differed here in Dwaraka was the sacred thread given to him by Sandipani Muni at the time of initiation, but this thread was concealed by Krishna's upper cloth. Then Nandana himself, his mind moved by abundant compassion, quickly got up, and by the powerful touch of his lotus hand, he brought me back to consciousness and carefully cleaned the limbs of my body. It was now lunchtime, but the Lord didn't feel like eating. Only at the insistence of his mothers did he perform his noontime duties. That darling son of Devaki fed me something with his own hand, and only then took something himself for my satisfaction. The Lord sat his elder brother down within a circle of boys and fed them, just as he had before in his childhood pastimes. Uddhava knew the Lord's ecstasies very well, so he ate some of Krishna's Mahaprasad remnants and then took me somewhat by force to his own house. Only then did I completely return to normal consciousness. Reflecting on what I had seen, I danced for a long time and then began to think. I said to myself, indeed, today I have achieved the ultimate perfection of all my desires, for with my very eyes I have seen the hero of Braja, with all his attractive charms, that same person upon whom I have always meditated in my heart. The next day, I went with Uddhava and saw my Lord, but I was so beside myself with delight that I was unable to do more than that. While residing there in Dwaraka, I constantly, abundantly received Lord Krishna's wonderful mercy. I tasted such a flood of supreme ecstasy that no one could tell of it in words, or even think of it within the mind. Not even a pure devotee of the Lord with a lifetime of Brahma. The happiness found in liberation is said to be supreme, multiplied many millions of times, and might be said to equal the joy in Vaikuntha. And if any joy still greater can be conceived, it is that which is found in Ayodhya. But joy born in Dwaraka, how can anyone even begin to describe it? Indeed, no faculty of mind or speech can grasp the joy a resident of Dwaraka feels from having gained the only Lord of his life after a long time yearning to see him. Only those whose minds are fit can know that joy. After I had lived for some time there in Dwaraka, some of the best of the divine Yadavas said something to me. Their hearts melted with eagerness to see everyone in the world happy, within and without. The divine Yadavas said, "Dear friend, you have come to this place, which is more full in supreme splendor than even Vaikuntha, and you are now our companion. We think that it is hardly fitting that you continue to dress like a miserable forest dweller. This troubles our minds. So please, take on our type of dress and looks, which are naturally available to anyone who lives here. Get with the fashion." Sri Kumar said, "Even though these Yadavas insisted, I stayed like a poor, simple devotee because in their dress I would not have been able to taste the special mood that appealed to my mind and to Lord Achyuta's. I then became shy and feared to go near the personality of Godhead when he was seated in his court and being served by his transcendental opulences. Sometimes I would see the Lord with 4 hands. I couldn't always see the special pastimes he performs in Brajabhumi." So this discontent starts to creep in again, because it's like it happens over and over again. It's like joy, and then, but wait a minute, there's something missing. We know that feeling too. Sometimes the Lord would go alone to visit his dear friends, the Pandavas, who stayed nearby. And so, because of desires long held but unfulfilled, my heart would feel tormented. But when I could see his beauty and qualities once again, my heart would again become peaceful. His nectarian words revealed his mercy. How can my tongue even touch the unique happiness they created? During the several days I spent this way in the house of Uddhava, if there were any unhappiness, I would conceal it by feigning happiness. Then comes Narada Muni. One day I saw Narada come. I bowed down to him, and in utter joy and amazement I spoke to him in the following way. "Oh, Narada, best of the Lord's associates in the guise of an exalted sage, I see you just everywhere. In the heavenly planets, in Vaikuntha, and now here, looking just the same. How fascinated I am to see this." And in Vaikuntha, Narada spoke the following. He explained this. Now he's going to explain it again. Here's the previous chapter, Vaikuntha chapter. Although Krishna, his associates, and his abode are seen in various forms, in different places, and in dreams, and other special states of consciousness, they are with perfect consistency one, although many, and they are always real. So he's going to explain it again in more precise detail. That is, the Lord manifests different forms, and those forms are one and the same with him. Similarly, the devotees, exalted, pure, perfected devotees, may exhibit different forms of themselves. We discussed this. But it's not, they're not different from the original from which the expansion has come. So Narada's in multiple places. And Uddhava's in multiple places. Sri Narada said, "My dear young cowherd, surely you have always been a curious boy. And so you are even now. Haven't I explained this to you before? Just as the one personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, exists in many forms and many places, so also we, his servants. So it is with all of us, Sri Garuda, and other attendants like Sriman Hanuman, and our friend Uddhava, and others too, like these Yadavas." Here's the commentary. We're not used to hearing this, so it's like, what? Devotees like Garuda and Shesha are associates of the Lord of Vaikuntha, whereas Hanuman, Jambavan, and other servants are servants of Lord Ramachandra. Hanuman sings the glories of Lord Ram in Kim Purusha Loka of Bhuloka region and simultaneously in the Ayodhya of Vaikuntha. So what's that? What's Kim Purusha Varsha of Bhuloka? Do you know?
Part of Bhumandala.
Yes. Description in the 5th canto is the universe has 14 planetary systems, and of the upper 7, Bhumandala is number 1, and then the topmost is Brahmaloka. And so Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Svargaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Brahmaloka. That's the 7. So in this Bhumandala region where we are, it describes its flat topography, and it's made of 7 islands and 7 oceans. but they're very unusual islands. They're circular with a ring of ocean surrounding, and then a ring of islands surrounding that, and then a ring of ocean surrounding that, and a ring of islands. So 7 of those rings. And the central ring is called, or central island, Jambudweep. 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 And the Jambudweep has 9 varshas, or tracts of land. And Bharat Varsha is one of those 9. And the tracts of land are separated by humongous mountain ranges. So just the Bharat Varsha has a mountain range to its north, the Himalayas, and then there's another Varsha, and that's this Kim Purusha Varsha, kind of like a valley in between 2 mountain ranges. And that's where Hanuman is, and he's worshipping Ram. So Hanuman is at Kim Purusha Varsha, singing the glories of the Lord, and also in Ayodhya in the spiritual sky. So which is it? And well, he's both. This is what Narada is explaining to Kumar. We're hearing, we're getting an explanation. I discussed this sometime recently, I forget when it was, but Arjuna can do the same thing. He's an eternal associate of Krishna. So to keep it really simple, Krishna's pastime, we say, Krishna's pastimes eternal, Nitya Lila. So his activities of being the cousin of the Pandavas. So then there's events that take place between the Pandavas and Krishna. And wherever Krishna is, Arjuna is. So when one pastime completes here, it's beginning over there, and it's beginning over there, and it's beginning over there, like the rising of the sun. The sun is always rising somewhere. Like that. The sun is always rising somewhere. So Krishna's pastimes are always going on somewhere. So since Krishna's pastimes are going on somewhere, and Arjuna, his eternal associate, Arjuna must be with him where Krishna is. So there's a lot of Arjunas. And the answer is yes. There's multiple expansions of Arjunas. We discussed this. So he's amazed. Gopakumar is amazed. Arjuna, Narada, I see you everywhere. You're here, and you're there, and you're there, and you're there, and you. And Uddhava, whom Gopakumar can see right before him, is simultaneously one of the principal companions of Krishna in Dwaraka on earth, along with the Yadavas and the Pandavas and others. Considering the topic too confidential to bring up just now, Narada chooses not to mention Krishna's devotees in Sri Goloka. That's another mystery. All the Lord's personal associates are at his hand, like playthings. They're always fully dedicated to his service. Each assumes a variety of forms, yet stays essentially one, just like the Lord himself. The Lord's names, his pastimes, and his favorite abodes, and everything that has to do with his service can assume various forms. And you should know that just as all these are eternally real, each of them is simultaneously one in many. What amazes me is that you still appear like this, playfully showing your same characteristic as before. And even here, you always seem discontent and distressed at heart. because they had this discussion in Vaikuntha. That is most astonishing to me. Sri Gopal Kumar said, taking hold of Narada's feet, I bowed down and humbly told him, my Lord, you know everything about this. Then Narada smiled and spoke, looking at Uddhava's face. Sri Narada said, just see, Uddhava, this cowherd's son, born at Govardhan, is seeking something unachievable for persons like you and me. Greatly agitated, he wanders here and there, never anywhere transcending the painful distress that is fixed in his heart. Indeed, Uddhava, you are always anxious to favor the residents of Braja, then why not spend a moment to enlighten this boy who is present right beside you? The abode of Goloka is very far away, and the happiness relished there is inaccessible to us. And even the means to achieve that abode is so rarely obtained that we can only pray for it. Srimad Uddhava said, he was born in Brajabhumi, and there he was engaged as a cowherd, and he is firmly established in the worship of Lord Gopal. He is surely a much greater soul than you and I. Narada was delighted to hear this. He embraced Uddhava and enthusiastically told him, please hurry and instruct him so that he may fulfill his desires. Uddhava replied, O great sage, since I am a Kshatriya by birth, in your presence I have no right to instruct him. Narada laughed very loudly and said to Uddhava, even here in Vaikuntha you can't stop thinking yourself a Kshatriya. Smiling, Uddhava told him, what can I say? How can someone like me stop thinking himself a Kshatriya when even our Lord does not? Here in Vaikuntha, the Lord maintains the religious principles of civilized people, just as he does on earth. He behaves like a proper family man, conquers his enemies, shows respect to elders and brahmanas, and so on. These words filled Narada's mind with pleasure, and he laughed, jumped up and down, and shouted in joy. Astonished, he spoke as follows. Sri Narada said, indeed, just see the amazing charm and glory of the personality of Godhead's pastimes, and see in those pastimes how seriously committed his devotees are to serving him, and him alone. Oh, how very curious that this Lord plays in the highest abode, above Vaikuntha, the same way as in the world of the mortals, just to satisfy his dear devotees. Even experienced devotees like me are bewildered to see such pastimes. Like that's what happened when he went to Dwaraka. I think we should read that from the Bhagavatam, Narada's visit to Dwaraka. Whether we are in, which makes us wonder whether we are in Dwaraka or Vaikuntha or the Dwaraka of the material world. It's quite fitting that you devotees care only for prema bhakti, pure, loving devotional service to the Lord's lotus feet. Such prema bhakti for the Lord, who is very affectionate to his devotees, fulfills all their ambitions, and alone is their final goal. You have no great interest in acting as residents of Vaikuntha or sojourners in the material world, and he has no great interest in showing his opulence or getting involved in mundane relationships. You always live in utter humility, which most favorably nourishes devotion and pure love. And the Lord's pastimes of seeming absorbed in worldly pleasure, amply evoke such love. Who can describe the greatness of the mature perfection of love of God, which makes the Supreme Lord act like an ordinary good friend? Oh, let me praise Krishna's mood as an ordinary friend, which does away with the respect and reverence of his devotees and expands their pure love for him. Kumar is reciting this to a Brahmana in Braja to explain through his experience what the Brahmana wants to understand. So Kumar, after saying this, Narada was overwhelmed by the weight of love, swept up in various ecstatic transformations. He remained silent for a while. Then he spoke to me again because he saw that I was troubled and keen for his instructions. To be continued. So he's getting some training or preparation or some warm-up for leaving Dwaraka and going to Vrindavan. And remember, he's a little boy. He hasn't received formal education of any kind. And here he is with Narada and Uddhava, foremost learned persons. Narada is the rishi amongst the devas. The demigods look to Narada as the learned person who guides them, Devarshi Narada. And Uddhava, outside of Vrindavan, he's the most learned person. All the residents of Dwaraka look to him as the most learned person. He advises Krishna. He's very wise. So these two, Narada and Uddhava, are going to be giving instructions to Gopakumar how to ready himself to go to Vrindavan, how to understand what he's been through and understand things that we wouldn't understand unless we hear from such qualified people. So that's coming attractions. Compliments of Sanatana Goswami. So any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. It is so amazing, how much detailed description it is given. I miss the whole purpose of reading about spiritual world is to increase the attraction.
Yes,
right? It's like an advertisement.
Exactly.
But then hearing the lectures, and hearing the description, I still don't get that attraction. I still don't wow, I really want to go there.
That's understandable. And the reason why is we're covered. We're attracted to another category of things than this category of things. Let's go, consciousness-wise down a little bit. If it doesn't bring material happiness, let's say literature that people are fascinated with. They can, they can get absorbed in those things very easily. Whether it's literature or games, that's war games and fighting and this thing and that, and just mind dull. So the people can spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours doing that stuff. So, and they'll go down further and go down further. So it's cleansing just to hear, whatever our attraction and whatever our understanding is. Now, Srila Prabhupada wanted us very much to understand fundamentals, Bhagavad Gita, the 101, not the 201 and 301. This is way up there topics. And we don't our senses and mind and intelligence are not purified enough to have full taste and appreciation for these things. I'm doing it anyways. And one of the reasons for doing it anyways has to do with what we've been reading morning and evening is Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan with our acharyas, and over and over and over. Because it's the 10th canto, they're emphasizing the mood of the resident of Vrindavan, the kind of love they have that's superlative. So, what's that realm like? Well, what our topic just now is, even if we hear what it's like, it doesn't go in so easily because we're still in some lower stage of consciousness. But it gives us a picture in any case. And nothing of the material world compares to this, as far as its features and opulence. And so then when we come down to, let's just say, discussing Sankhya philosophy, or the structure of the universe, or time, or karma, or the modes of nature that are kind of like within our grasp, it doesn't have the sweetness of this spiritual realm, but it helps us get a proper orientation towards the goal. So they go together, is what I'm saying. And the Vedic picture is vast and comprehensive and complete. The goal is personal, not impersonal. That much is clear, right? I'm looking at your son. Okay. Something else?
Just, Maharaj, we have a reading group with other newcomers, Bhagavatam reading group. So, is it okay to talk about these topics?
Probably not your reading group.
No, okay. Like how, when I'm explaining them about difference between Ayodhya and Dwaraka Dham and Vrindavan Dham, just to keep it basic, like the mood is different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Anything? You pass.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. So, in the morning and in the evening, like we've been just discussing and pastimes of Krishna, and reading Bhagavatam also, it's all about Krishna. So that increases attraction towards Krishna.
Yes, naturally.
And so for me, like I don't have so much attraction towards Lord Chaitanya and his Leela. So how important it is to develop that as well, or it's okay to just do this?
Well, it's important, but you can say, I would say, in time. And the Leela of Lord Chaitanya is more, the interpersonal dealings of Lord Chaitanya are more approachable. Like this is like, And Lord Chaitanya was appearing just 500 years ago and moving about in the world that we're used to seeing. This is Dwaraka and Vrindavan. So, and the exchanges are very, very warm and loving and sweet. And certainly some parts of it are inexplicable, but in general, very warm and loving and sweet. So to become attracted to his pastimes, and then of course his teachings, which are found in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, they're very profound. So sweetness elevated and profound teachings at the same time. It's a nice balance. So in course of time, undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate, because so that undergraduate will help understand the graduate, and the graduate will help understand the postgraduate. But even if one doesn't understand undergraduate, graduate, just hearing the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, they're very, very sweet. And embedded within them, there's teachings or philosophy or understandings about reality of life. So even if just hear the pastimes. And that makes, when you are familiar with Bhagavad Gita and some portions of Bhagavatam, and then you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's like, wow. I got prepared to understand the postgraduate. It may not be explicitly expressed, but the background gives you that understanding. That is the understanding of transcendence. So your question is, how important is it? And my answer is, in time.
This is Radha Kunja Bihari Prabhu. From the descriptions, it is clear that devotees of the Lord are present in the spiritual world, but the demigods are not. We hear that during King Yudhishthira's reign, he enters the heavenly planets with his material body. I heard from you today that Pandavas reside nearby Dwaraka in the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
From this, do I understand that Yudhishthira is present in his material body over there?
How is that possible? Just like Gopal Kumar's body has become spiritualized, so also them.
This is Neena Chakrabarti Mataji. Hare Krishna Maharaj, if you could kindly enlighten us a bit about the other 6 Varshas. We heard about Bharata Varsha. Can you please describe about the other 6 Varshas, please?
There's 9 total, and there's not so Bharat Varsha, Kim Purusha Varsha, and Hari Varsha. That's in the southern. So there's 3 plus 3 plus east and west, and then the center. Loka Varsha. Ilavriti Varsha. What's the central island? Huh? No, Jambudvipa is the central island, but the Varsha in the center. Ilavrita Varsha. So anyway, That's the 9. And there's not, the descriptions is found in Canto 5, Chapter 19. Hari Varsha is another. So those are the 3 that are spoken the most about. Bharat Varsha, Kimpurusha Varsha, Hari Varsha. And in each place there's a form of the Lord, and there's a devotee of the Lord who's worshipping that particular form of the Lord. Canto 5, Chapter 19.
This is Satyavrata Prabhu. Even while chanting, sometimes many bad thoughts pops out and distracting our chanting, and I feel very miserable. What to do about it?
Well, the lesson of Bhagavad Gita, the first lesson is you tolerate those things, knowing that they're arising from sense perception, or in this case it's sense perception away from asat and towards sat. And then you practice and practice and practice, and gradually purification comes where those bad thoughts diminish. And then we can think of like one of the Yamunacharya verses that Prabhupada often quoted was whenever he would think of sex, his lips would curl and he would spit on the thought. And Prabhupada's explanation was because previously Yamunacharya was a king, and as a king he had luxurious life, and he had plenty of opportunity for material indulgence. And when his mind would go to those material indulgence thoughts, it was so distracting that he, please go away. His lips would curl and he would spit on the thought. So we don't have to spit on the thought, but we distance ourselves from the thought and turn our attention instead to a life of devotion. You just tolerate those things because that's a price we have to pay for our past free will choices that were foolish. And you just tolerate it and turn your attention to Krishna. Keep doing that and keep turning your attention to Krishna, and they'll fade. That's it.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Morning you were talking about Srimad Bhagavatam as the Swarupa Shakti of the Lord.
Yeah.
So what is the scope of it? Like, is it
What's the scope of it?
Only the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita and Chaitanya Charitamrita? These are also...
Well, Hari Katha.
Oh.
Hari Katha. Topics of Hari. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the crown jewel or crest jewel amongst those topics. Okay. We're done? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.